welcome to part 4 of my video series Mastering Nakhmanson Gambit. In today's video I want to show you what we as Nakhmanson Gambit fans really don't want to see: the declined variations. In the last videos I showed you what will happen if Black just simply accepts the gambit and takes our knight with the pawn, and I really hope that I could convince you that the variations are quite exciting and why we really got some practical chances in over-the-board games and especially in blitz online games, you know. But of course, Black isn't forced to take the knight with the pawn. He has some nice ways to decline the gambit, and the most common way is to take the knight with the knight. This variation will be covered into this video. I also will cover the move d5, which is also quite popular, but I think it's not that strong like knight takes knight. In my opinion, the strongest move is the move knight to d6. And don't get me wrong, this move is quite unpopular yet. It's a really only rare played move in games, but it's the engine's favorite. And by analyzing, I really got a feeling, yeah, that's a strong move. And I also saw the first videos by international masters who recommend this move. And so I really think we have to cover it, but I will do it in a separate video. And if you ask me, then this is probably the best variation for Black. And this will probably become the main line sooner or later if people start preparing for a Nakhmanson Gambit. So yeah, enough talk. Let's just jump right into the analyze. So without further ado, it's time to checkmate. I will start the analysis of the declined variations with the move d5. We really don't need to fear this variation as white, if you ask me. We just simply capture the pawn on d5 with the bishop. He will take the knight on c3, and then we just simply grab the knight on e4. And after the exchange of queens, Black has two options. White in a moment, he's up a pawn on c3, and so it's only logic for him to play bishop to b4, with the idea that if we would grab the pawn on c3, he could just simply grab it back, and then he would be up a pawn, and yeah, I think he would just simply be superior. Or another variation is to just simply grab the pawn on b2 so that we have to grab it back. But I believe that both variations are absolutely fine for us. Let's start with the move c takes b2. Well, then you just simply grab the pawn with the bishop, and as you already can see, yes, you're down a pawn, but your bishop got a pretty nice diagonal, and you also could bring it to c3, and then you could bring your rook to b1, so that you gain control over the half-open b-file. So, if you think about this position from Black's side of perspective, it's not so easy to develop. I mean, his rooks are still in the corner, his bishops are still on f8 and c8, and even his king is still stuck in the center, while our pieces are already quite good placed, you know. So what's really hard for Black is to develop this bishop, because if he wants to move it away, well, then his pawn on g7 is on pre. So a logical looking move is, for example, f6. And here you just simply could play rook to e1 with the threat of taking the knight on c6 with check. So he couldn't recapture and he would win a piece, so he has to do something about it. And the best move is actually to move the king away and playing king to d8. So now Black also lost the right to castle. Here we just simply can bring our second rook into the center and play rook a to d1. And after bishop d7 and rook to e3, I believe that we really need to have some compensation for the pawn. I mean, we could double up our rooks on the e-file, potentially bring it to the b-file, you know. I mean, yes, Black is up a pawn, but he still has some difficulties to face, and I believe that we got some compensation for the pawn. So taking is nothing we should be afraid of, but a better move for Black is bishop to b4. And here we should just simply grab the knight on c6 with our bishop, saying check, and ruin Black's pawn structure. I mean, yes, we're down a pawn, it's the truth, and Black also got the bishop here, but well, you know what? you got this triple pawns on a C file and the isolated pawn on the A file, so we at least get some structural advantage for the bishop pair and the being down a pawn, you know. And in this position, the best move for white is just simply playing knight to e5, attacking the pawn on c6, and well, here black got two options. And let's say he protects the pawn with bishop to b7, well, then you just simply play rook to b1 and you're absolutely fine. You're threatening to take the pawn on c3 and opening up the line for your rook, attacking both bishops. I really think that this position is okay for white. And another option would be to play bishop to d6, attacking the knight, but you just simply grab the pawn on c6, and after bishop to b7, you just simply play rook to e1. You already can see what black had in mind, you know. He gave up the pawn to activate his bishops against our king, but I think without the queens on the board, they are not too dangerous, but of course they are pretty active, so they are pretty well placed. Anyway, black has to play a move like king to d7, and here we got a check on e5, and this is, yeah, I mean, here black really got only one move, and this is to exchange the knight, and so we managed to get rid of the black's bishop pair. And yeah, I mean, white in the moment, we got the dark squared bishop, he got the light squared bishops, pawns are equal, and yeah, I think that this position is absolutely equal, with good drawing chances. I just want to show you some more moves. Let's say rook h to e8, rook to e3, and if you would grab the rook, well, then you just simply grab it with bishop, and then you could grab the pawn on b2. You just simply play rook to b1, bishop d5, and you take on b2. And yeah, I mean, come on, this position is pretty drawish. So yeah, this is the d5 line. I don't think you have to fear it too much, but I had to cover it. So now let's jump to the main line of today's video, and this is knight takes c3. Well, if black takes our knight with the knight, then we have to recapture with the pawn. And here, black's best move is d5. I mean, it's an absolute logical move, but I have to mention that players in this position were greedy and played the move d takes c3. And this is already a mistake, and white is already winning, because after rook to e1, black has to do something, and the best move is probably bishop to e7. And here you have the nice move, and this is the only move that is winning, so really try to yeah, memorize it. It's the move knight to g5, attacking the f7 square. So black has to do something about it, and the most logical move in this position is castling. And here you have the move queen to h5, and you're threatening mate on h7. So it's not that easy for black to do anything about it. He's already clearly losing, to be honest. A logical move would be, for example, bishop takes g5, but after bishop takes g5, black suddenly loses the queen, because the queen cannot go to e8 because of our rook, and he cannot play f6 because of our bishop. So white would win the queen and the game, so this is absolutely fine for us. Another option for black would be the move h6, but this is actually even worse, because after knight takes f7, attacking the queen, well, what can black do? Let's say he plays a move like queen to e8. Well, then you just simply have to check on h6 with the knight and the bishop, so it's a double check. He has to step aside with the king, and after knight to f7 check, king g8, it's mate on h8 with the queen. Well, you may now argue, well, dude, queen to e8 doesn't look that good, but how can I mate black if he just simply captures the knight with the rook, you know? Well, that's not that hard. You just simply capture the rook with the bishop, and after the king moves aside, you just simply play bishop to d5, threatening checkmate on f7, and let's say queen to e8, you just simply have to move, stunning move, queen takes h6. You're threatening queen to h8 check, mate, and if black just simply captures the queen, well, then it's a pretty beautiful mate with both bishops. Yeah, anyway, black was already lost, there are no better moves, so yeah. So taking on c3 is a big blunder by black, so a better move is just simply to play d5. And here The main move for white is rook to e1 check. I covered this in detail in my Leech study. I will put the link down below in the video description. So if you're interested in the rook to e1 line, or you're just saying, well, dude, the line that I will show you soon don't satisfies me, well, then you just could go and try to check it out. I won't cover this into this video because I just want to show you my recommendation and don't want to make the video longer than it needs to be. And my recommendation is to move bishop to b5. And this is actually not the main move. Rook to e1 is the main move, but I prefer the resulting positions bishop b5. So yeah, here black's best move is actually bishop to e7. And I just want to mention that d takes c3 is again a mistake. It's not a big blunder that loses the game right away like last time, but it's still a bad move because after knight to d4, it's already pretty hard for black to find good moves. We are putting much more pressure on the c6 knight. And a logical move at the first glance would probably be bishop to d7. But this is actually a big blunder because now you just simply grab the knight on c6 and after b takes c6, rook to e1, bishop to e7, you have the beautiful move, bishop to a3. And this is a move you really need to keep in mind, you know. This is a motive that will occur over and over again in the declined variations, you know, if black isn't careful, because as you can see, black cannot take our bishop because of the pin, and he really got some problems to defend the bishop one more time. Actually, he cannot really defend it one more time, so he's losing material. The best move in this position is probably c takes b5, but after rook takes e7 check, queen takes e7, bishop takes e7, and king takes e7, and queen takes d5, well, it's absolutely clear that white must be better. Right now we have a queen for a rook and a bishop. And let me count. We have 5 pawns. Black got 7 pawns, so he also got 2 pawns. But his position isn't that good. We actually threaten move like rook to e1 check. Yeah, so this position is absolutely better for white. Nothing wrong with the position. And yeah, so a much better move in this position would be bishop to e7, as I already told you. And here, this is the critical position for white. This position was reached quite a lot in online blitz games. Well, and the move that I want to recommend you is bishop takes c6 check. Before I will show you this variation, I just want to briefly mention other variations. The most common move in this position was knight takes d4. But I really don't like the variation because after bishop to d7, rook to b1, castling, and bishop to d3, attacking the b7 pawn, and also threatening moves like queen to h5 and checkmate on h7, black just simply can play knight takes d4, and after c takes d4, e6, queen h5, threatening the mate on h7. He just simply can play g6, and after we grab the pawn on d5, well, you know what, he just simply plays bishop to e6, and he regains his pawn, and I mean, in this position I don't believe that white got any kind of compensation for the pawn. It's actually black who's better. So yeah, this is the reason why I don't like this variation. I just want to show you one more line before I come to my main line, and this is c takes d4. And the reason why I show you this line is because on Leeches there's a FIDE master with the nickname IAM24601 who has a blitz rating of over 2,700 points, and I found quite a lot of games he played in the Nakhmanson Gambit. I cannot say how many games he played, but at least 100 games, and especially in this variation he really showed some interesting way of playing the position for white. But I think that if black plays accurate, then he will remain being up a pawn and is having a superior position. So I just want to show you briefly some more moves in this variation without too much analyze. If you want to know more about the variation, just check out my Leeches study. There you will find some more notation. This is a game he actually played, and the game continued with castling, bishop takes c6, b takes c6, knight to e5, attacking the pawn on c6, bishop d7, a4, and his plan is to bringing his bishop to a3 and then rerouting the knight to c5 so that he gets some kind of control over the dark squares, you know. And game continued by f6, knight to d3, bishop f5, bishop a3, bishop d6, and knight c5. So this was what white had in mind. But after queen e7, rook e1, queen f7, knight to d3, rook f to e8, bishop takes d6, c takes d6, queen f3, bishop e4, queen g3, and queen to d7, protecting the pawn on d6. I really don't see much compensation for white. To be honest, I actually believe that black's already better. Black's next moves will be rook to c8, pushing c5, and he also got options of playing g5 at the right moment. So white is already defending and he's down a pawn, so I don't like this variation too much, but the truth must be told, black had to find some accurate moves. And the idea of the dark squared play by white, you know, placing the bishop on a3 and placing the rook, the knight to c5, is actually quite interesting. I just wanted to show this line to you in this video because a good FIDE master, I already named him, plays this variation quite regularly on lichess, and you may want to check out his games to learn something about it. I instead want to recommend the move bishop takes c6 check, and this is virtually nearly unknown. You know, it's only a really rarely played in practical games. And the reason why I like this move is, well, you still can play for the plan that I showed you in the game by FIDE master IM24601, playing a4, bishop to a3, and then bringing the knight to c5. But you also can try to dull down the game and playing for a draw. So it's quite flexible. Yes, it's not the attacking game you are looking for, but yeah, sometimes you have to accept that something went wrong and you have to try to play for the draw, right? So yeah, black's logical move is to take the bishop on c6 and then we play knight to e5. And we are taking the pawn on c6, so black normally will play bishop to d7, and then we play queen to f3, threatening mate on f7. So black has to do something, and the most logical move is castling, and then finally we take the pawn on d4. So the position is quite similar to the position where we played c takes d4 at first, but it's kind of different because we now got the option of taking the bishop on d7, destroying black's bishop pair. So in this position, black's best move is actually f6, and here we just simply take the bishop pair. And if you don't want to play for the draw, but instead want to complicate the game, you still can play the move knight to d3, and after rook to b8, a4, bishop d6, bishop a3, rook to e8, knight to c5. You reach a similar position as in the c takes d4 line I just showed you earlier. This wouldn't be the line I would prefer, but it's probably playable, and yeah, you just simply could try it out. And my recommendation is instead knight takes d7, and after queen takes d7 you play the move bishop to a3. The idea is to exchange the dark squared bishops and go into a major piece endgame, and you always will have drawing chances in a rook endgame or in a queen endgame, especially because black's pawn structure isn't really superior to our pawn structure, you know? I mean, yeah, he just simply got double pawns, and okay, he could push it, then he take it, and then he could push c5. So yeah, he has some chances to increase his pawn structure, that's true, but I still think that we will have drawing chances. And here's an example line that goes bishop takes a3, queen takes a3, and as you can see, our queen is already pretty much better than black's queen, you know. We're already attacking the pawn on a7, got this nice diagonal, and the black's queen is somehow forced to guard his pawns. let's say black tries to exchange our queens because he understands that his queen is worse, and he plays the move queen to d6. Well, we just simply step aside and play the move queen to a5. And I would stop my analyze at this point. Yes, it's true, we're down a pawn. Nothing to complain about it, but I think we got the more active queen. And it's not so easy for black to develop his rook on a8, because then the pawn on a7 would be loose, and if the queen would move away, then the pawn on c7 would be loose, and even the computer gives it only as plus 0.5 for black, so this is only half a point, and for me this position looks actually pretty drawish. And yeah, I mean, I understand if you're saying that you play the Nakhmanson Gambit to play for a win, but the truth is, if black declines the gambit, then it's actually white who's struggling to gain a draw, and I think that this is the best you can hope for if black plays accurate moves. I mean, I showed you also some variations where black just simply went greedy and you was able to overplay him. But yeah, this is the variation I would suggest you if black plays the move knight takes c3. So yeah, I hope you liked today's video. I hope you learned something. If you did, please let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. So see you next time, and it's again time to checkmate.